Dr. McGee.
Rahul.
We might as well get right into the actual interview
Sure.
About the article that I wrote in
Right.
the acronym that you have here, the Illinois Malnutrition and Sleep Deprivation Academy.
Very creative title.
Right. It talks about, as you've already read, two main points about creativity and innovation within our doors and how extrinsic factors and intrinsic factors are changing them and changing how the students have to interact as well. As such, I also opened up an online forum where students could ask you questions directly about the article.
Yeah.
And so I'd just like to open it up right now if you want to bring up any points that you thought were relevant or any points that you really wanted to address that were in the article.
Sure. Well, I want to spend most of the time on questions because that I think is important to the students, but I wanted to commend you for writing the article. I read every article in the acronym because I think it's important. I encourage everyone who reads this interview or watches the broadcast to do the same. You know, frankly, a way I can learn a lot about what really matters to the students, and the articles, including yours, are generally very, very well written. And in fact, you and I talked when you were at NC SSS MST. I said, "Oh, you made some good points, and some I don't necessarily agree with."
Right.
But I thought it was quite thought-provoking. It was well structured, and it gave me some things to think about. As my push here as the president of the world's leading teaching and learning laboratory for Imagination Inquiry, and I'll put the emphasis on that piece now, it is really to draw attention to the fact that we are a laboratory, not a school.
Right.
And I think we do need to foster creativity and innovation, perhaps more than we do now. And I also appreciate how you brought out the third part of that mission statement. You know, everybody here knows the middle part.
Right.
Most know.
Human condition.
That's right. That's right. Most know about the laboratory, but not everybody really reads about the global networking, the personalized learning experiences, the pioneering outreach. And I think you brought a great point of bringing those up. So let's go through the questions, and if we don't, cover all I have to say are my impressions in the questions, I'll just come back at the end, maybe with a wrap-up comment.
Of course, that's fine.
Great.
Okay, so you mentioned actually how Imsa is a laboratory.
Yeah.
And so do you ever feel that instead of working from a hypothesis towards results, that sometimes we work backwards from trying to create results and then trying to attack that in a different strategy?
Yeah. I think we do. I think it's both. I don't think it's either or. I think it's both and. So sometimes we use data, and that drives some hypothesis forming, some pilot programs. Let me give you an example. So we have some data that females here have not been pursuing electives in physics to the extent their male counterparts are.
Right.
And we did some research on that. We did some interviews. We were in some focus groups. We actually did a detailed research project and had somebody help us with that, an outside researcher. And so as a result, we said, well, what can we do from what we've learned? So that's where we got this idea of the self-paced physics.
Okay.
What can we do? Will that make physics more attractive to our young woman?
Right.
Are they more likely to succeed? So, and I think you approach the physics from a different way. From your impression is maybe we're dumbing it down, whereas is let's have more people succeed, make it self-paced, make more perhaps interaction with the teacher or the faculty member, and ideally have girls pursue physics electives more. So we're tracking that data now. So that's an example of where we use the results to drive something. Now, on the other hand, sometimes we're just piloting things to pilot them. Now, I've had the chance, even today, I sat in Dr. Shrementi's seminar on the disease and virology. It was fantastic. Now, I haven't talked to her about where she came up with that idea, but it's a good one. I know some of the course proposals of teachers. I've had the opportunity to talk to Dr. Prince about a proposal he's put in for a class for next year, which I think is, frankly, kind of a good idea. Dr. Esterlund and the consideration in ethics. I mean, that was something that he brought in. I said, that's a really good idea. And we had some data based on student surveys that synergy really could be more. And so we decided, let's try the ethics.
Okay.
So it works from both. And so I think we're off to a good start. I think we could do much more as far as being a laboratory, and I hope to create some conditions that will foster more work in that regard, or more ideas, spark more imagination, create more incentives for that kind of programming.
Okay. So in terms of, I guess, the collaborative method and the creativity that we are trying to foster, what do you think are some of the strengths and weaknesses that already exist within our academy and how we actually demonstrate that collaborative method?
So, well, your article pointed out how sometimes students are afraid to collaborate because of the academic integrity rules and violations. Right. And so if that's the case, we're not doing a good job of making it clear what is appropriate and what is inappropriate collaboration. I think we need to maybe clear that up. Because if you don't understand it, Rahul, nobody understands it.
Well,
you have a good sense of that. And but I don't think there is universal understanding, and there needs to be, because we are about collaboration. I mean, that's whenever I take people on tours, I point that out, how students are working in groups. And I think, you know, one of the greatest sources of knowledge here is students talking with each other.
Okay.
You know, and I've seen that firsthand. I mean, I was just in Dr. Cho's class before I came up here, and see a group of sophomores interacting, collaborating, doing a lab experiment. Mm-hmm. I was in Ms. Kane's class this morning and saw, you know, great collaboration as they're discussing, you know, a short story by Thomas Jones. So there, I like to see more of it, but if students are afraid of being inappropriate, there's a reason for it. Now, that being said, I know that some students do.
Right.
Because I've seen it myself. Yeah, they don't. They pass notes. They have one person do the presentation.
Right.
And, you know, part of it's because of time. They run out of time to do it. Part of it's because they have other work. Part of it is because they don't know the definition. So I think there's a balance. Since we've had our honor statement, and I think we've seen a decline in instances of inappropriate collaboration.
Useful, right?
Right. So we do need to balance it better, but I hope that students do feel free to collaborate. And frankly, they ought to ask their teachers about it, because the teachers will encourage collaboration. And I think, you know, maybe if absent a hard and fast academy-wide definition, they can certainly get that from the faculty members. Say, in this class, this is what appropriate looks like. This is what inappropriate looks like.
Right.
So, you know, that's one thing just that struck me about your article. That you know, part of the article was about, you know, the man, the administration imposing his or her will or collective will, and I hope that the students don't feel that way. That they feel they can talk freely with the administration, but also with their faculty members about issues like this. So, if nothing else comes out of this, I hope it opens up this opportunity for more serious dialogue among students and administration, and students and faculty members.
On the note, actually, of student-teacher dynamics as well as student-faculty dynamics, how do you feel that collaboration within departments and different levels of administration could improve, or how do you think it has already served the student body?
Well, I always think we could do a better job. I mean, when I started here 5 years ago, I said we really cannot be a collection of communities.
Right.
We have to be a collective community. So how are we going to work together? Mm-hmm. I think we're seeing more of that this year. I think the faculty is working hard to really develop this kind of collective, I don't know if vision's the right word, but collective identity.
Right, okay.
And I know Dr. McLaren's been working hard with the faculty on that, and so having more opportunities for cross-dialogue among the faculty. We had a terrific speaker come out and talk about professional learning communities and assessments that matter. Mm-hmm. And I've been encouraged by some of the conversations among faculty members that way. The student life, I think, has really made some efforts this year to engage more with the faculty and kind of cross those boundaries as well. And I hope as the administration that we've been more open.
Right.
And I know I've had the opportunity to meet with the faculty on a couple occasions, talk about the laboratory culture. I shared, you know, the great work that you and Johnny have done with the United Nations of Youth. As we look forward to Imsa's future, and the last piece, I know I talk too much, so
no, that's fine.
this will be a 60 minutes and then some maybe interview. but the other piece is integrating the academy with our field services work. So one of the goals that we have this year is how to expand Imsa's online presence.
Right.
And we'll need to have the faculty engaged and involved in that. It's not just something we do with field services.
Okay.
So we're making an effort. We still have a long way to go.
That's true. Right.
And I think one thing you've learned from the United Nations of Youth and Johnny, is the power of collaboration
That's
on,
true.
on a large scale, and how much we can learn from each other when we have that opportunity for open dialogue.
All right. So, in addition to like the online presence that you mentioned, what other changes would you like to see within the entire school? I guess that would increase creativity and innovation. What other things that would foster projects like mine, or even just collaborative methods that you've seen in classrooms throughout the entire school?
Sure. I think we need to have more opportunities for kind of this cross collaboration and interaction. One of the ideas, for example, I just sent back to the RCs this morning,
Right.
was the idea of a book club. I said, gosh, I'd love to have one of the halls do like a president's book club, and let's read something together. I mean, look, that's how we started United Nations Youth, talking
Exactly.
about Waiting for Superman, and look where that's read. And I think if we have some opportunities like that, we can do more. I think these small seminars, I mean,
Right.
like the virology seminar, are great ideas. So how do we, again, part of my job that I need to do is figure out how to provide the conditions that will enable that to happen.
Okay.
How to figure out to provide the faculty members with more time. So many of them are so busy. How to, so that they can engage with each other and engage in students in maybe, less structured way than just the class period.
Okay.
So I've asked our new human resource director, and our strategy 1 leaders,
Right.
to work on that. When we
Okay.
think about the whole person, how can we really help develop that?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So to transition a little bit more into the online forum, which a
Sure.
lot of students wrote into, and to take us a bit on a tangent,
Okay.
a lot of students wrote about their opinions of student-wide policies and how
Right.
that might aid them in terms of overall graduation rate and success rate in classrooms, etc.
Yeah.
But one student actually wrote quite eloquently, explain the justification of restrictive measures such as study hours and required teacher meetings, as well as remedial intersessions this year, in a school where we believe our gifted students should be able to decide for themselves how they learn.
Yeah. So this is where I'm going to go back to the data.
Right.
And I'm going to talk more about what I've learned over the last 5 years. I actually presented this to the whole staff, not just the faculty, to everyone at the beginning of the year.
Right.
So we went back and looked at admissions data the last 5 years. We looked at the math SAT scores, the Rater scores, the grade point average.
Right.
And so what's the 5-year trend? Well, the 5-year trend is it's going up.
That's good.
So it's in our number of applications, has been significant. It's been right around 750, some years a little more, some years a little less.
Right.
Especially the last 3 years, it's been right around. So we're getting a lot of highly qualified students, and of those admitted, what we're seeing is the scores are going up, but they're also going up at both the 25th percentile and 75th percentile. So it's not just the average or some kind of bimodal. Everybody, we're having a strong number of applicants. Over that same 5-year period, our graduation rate has declined.
Okay.
So over a 5-year period, we're averaging about an 86%, 85%, 80, somewhere 85, 86% graduation rate. But that's declining. If I look at it the other way, attrition rate over the last 5 years, it's gone from 11% 5 years ago. Last year was 18%.
Wow.
It's huge.
Yeah.
So scores are going up and more kids are leaving. Now, given that the state legislature funds Imsa,
Right.
and to a very generous amount, at some point, I will be accountable for what happens to those students. Dr. McGee, why aren't you keeping these students here? I see your admission scores are going up. Why are more students leaving? So we're solving that problem.
Okay.
And,
so is this another one of your pilots, I guess?
Yeah, and it is. And so a few ways we've, and it's not just mine. I mean,
Right, no, I understand.
obviously talk with the administrative leaders and others about this. So, and the faculty, I think, has done a good job of stepping up this year. Let's really, or the last few years, let's really work with students individually. But this is frankly one reason we have these mandatory study sessions when students go on academic difficulty. When we're not going to let them fail.
Okay.
And I think frankly the mark of a good teacher. And I'd like to think that at one time I was really a good teacher, and I still hear from former students I had, literally a long time ago,
Yeah, no, I understand.
30 plus years ago, where that you didn't let me fail.
Okay.
So we're not, and so I guess some of these things that we're doing within 4 study hours with the early cutoff.
Right.
It's not that we're trying to disrespect or dishonor the student voice, but
Okay.
frankly, if the students' grades put them in difficulty, it's our responsibility to help them succeed.
Okay.
And I mean it when I tell the students' parents, I want to treat everyone here like he or she were my own child.
Okay.
And I'm not about to let them fail. And so on one hand, I feel badly that they think they need more freedom, but on the other hand, I don't think it serves them well to just let them
free. Okay.
Yeah. Now, maybe we could balance things a little more. I mean, put more time into those students and those that are passing, maybe relaxed conditions. I guess I'd be open for a conversation about that. But for right now, we're doing our best to make sure that every sophomore who comes in graduates.
Okay.
One last thing about that,
yeah.
between and for the juniors and seniors, one of the things I've asked the Academy to take on this year is to look at that. So what can we do for students between sophomore and junior year and junior and senior year? Because we do a lot for our sophomores.
Right.
But then
the transition periods.
Yeah, what can we do online expansion? Is there a way that we can serve students online in the summer that are having problems?
That's a good point, right?
So
maintaining that is really important for transitions. Yeah.
So I guess to get back to answering the question is when we get our a graduation rate up over 90%, then we'll really talk about it.
Okay.
We can do that.
How to do
free things up a little. But it's really important to me to keep everybody here.
Okay. You also mentioned extrinsic pressures like parents and the Illinois General Assembly in particular. So what pressures and what forces have they exerted upon Imsa, and how has Imsa responded and changed as a result?
Sure. So the parents have, by and large, been very, very supportive.
Okay.
And frankly, Dr. McLaren and Dr. Hernandez deal more with parent issues than I do.
Right.
But,
makes sense.
I think that the parents have very high expectations for us that their students are treated fairly, and so I don't think we've really had. And we do parent survey data, which I look at every year. That's given us some ideas, for example, how to improve our wellness program. And I think Ms. Myers and Mr. Gensler and Mr. Lundgren have really done a good job in that regard.
Okay.
It's given us some ideas from Dr. Evenson and Ms. McGrath who are terrific about implementing things. And LEAD, I think our changes in the LEAD program have by and large been positive.
That's good.
So parents have really helped shape some of this through their surveys and through phone calls.
Okay.
As far as the General Assembly has been great to us. I mean,
they're very generous.
Aren't they? Yeah, they're very generous. They love being on campus. But some of the biggest pressures from them are, how do you serve students not at Imsa?
Okay.
And sometimes I think we focus so much just on the academy and forget that we have a responsibility to serve middle school and high school students, and to serve teachers across the state.
Okay.
So we're looking at how we can do that online, but that's to a legislature in a district somewhere else. What are you doing? What matters to him or her is, what are you doing for my students and my teachers when we're giving, what's the return on investment?
That's true.
Give me all this money, we're glad that we're serving the 650 students here, but what are you doing? And the other, though none of them have brought it up in so many words, but I think from a legislator's point of view is, if I send one of my, especially from some of our remote areas, I send one of my top students to you, who's my shining star in my local school district, and he comes to Imsa or she comes to Imsa, and if he or she goes back home because he can't make it, it's not what's wrong with that student, because this is one of my top students.
Right.
It's, what's wrong with you?
So
what are you doing to, help the student succeed?
So has that changed how we address students then, or?
It's changed how I've asked them to address them.
Yeah.
And the other piece is diversity. The General Assembly rightfully demands that we are a diverse student body.
Right.
And one thing I hear from, and I just heard it last week, in fact, I just heard it last Thursday from a legislative staff member telling me about her caucus, her Senate Republican caucus, how much they appreciate we are a diverse community.
Wow.
And when they're, whether it's Senator Murphy, Senator Lawson, Senator Altoff, Senator Rodano, these are Republican senators who come here and they remark upon the diversity.
Wow.
We've done a good job.
No, that is great.
But that is incredibly important, that we represent the geographic breadth of the state, the economic breadth of the state, and the racial, ethnic diversity in the state. Not exactly, but
Yeah.
it is, and there's significant legislative pressure to have a diverse student body.
That's good. Okay.
And the challenge for us is the difference in resources. The fact that students from Naperville, for example,
Right.
have so many more resources than the students from East Aurora. I mean, you take, these are two districts, literally almost, well, neighboring. I mean, I guess when you count 204 and 131, they are neighboring. One is very resource rich and the other is frankly kind of resource poor.
Right.
And so, but IMSA needs to, find a way to support these districts, and when they do send us students, make sure they succeed.
So in terms of diversity, I also like to touch on academic diversity
Yep.
and student interest.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about students pursuing non-STEM careers after they graduate IMSA, and how do other extrinsic factors feel about this as well?
Sure. The extrinsically or externally, I think with the legislatures and taxpayers, they look for a return on investment to Illinois. So ideally, that's first in math science. That's the name on the door. And one of the metrics we use are the number of alumni pursuing STEM degrees versus the general population.
Right.
We're engaged now in a large-scale study of schools like ours, comparing what outcomes our students in schools like IMSA and IMSA pursue versus gifted and talented students who go through regular high schools.
Okay.
And it's important to show that we do make a difference in terms of STEM majors. That being said, I think what's even more important, though, is that our students are advancing the human condition.
Right.
Especially for people in Illinois. And so one of the challenges sometimes that I have is connecting those dots for our external audiences.
Okay.
That they're very interested in students living in Illinois. You've heard that yourself.
That's true.
We want you to go to school here. We want you to live here and create jobs in our state. But there's ways that students can help the citizens of Illinois when our graduates live in California, when they live in New York, when they, I hate to say even Indiana, Wisconsin. So we need to draw lines to show how they make a contribution to the people of Illinois. Ideally it's in STEM, but not necessarily so. I mean, we have terrific writers. We have a few accomplished artists. We have some great financial minds, some great legal minds that are making a contribution to advance the human condition and to the people of Illinois. And that counts.
All right. So now bringing it back more to what we do here, does a measurement of standards impede on our ability to expand what IMSA is truly about? We're not really too concerned, nor the other audiences, about the kind of the standard measures. And I hear this from time to time. This kind of fear among staff members about AP or SAT averages or ACT, and I'll tell you, it doesn't matter all that much. I mean, they need to be good, but they don't. People really don't look at how you do compared to others. They're really concerned about things like what our students can do and produce. I mean, frankly, when I can show that our students publish articles. Right.
I mean, Peter Cunningham, the Assistant Secretary of Education, didn't come to IMSA because of our ACT scores.
That's true.
He came to IMSA because of what you guys are doing with your United Nations of Youth and connecting people from across the world. Andrea Schleicher of OECD didn't come because we have the highest PISA scores. We don't even give the PISA test.
That's true.
He came because what IMSA stands for. And that's a beacon of innovation, of collaboration, of 21st century learning. So yeah, it confounds me that I hear this from time to time, this fear that we will become an AP factory. I mean, it's not going to happen. And the legislature, they don't ask me about ACT scores. They don't. They want to know what we're doing to serve other students. They want numbers. They want to know those students we serve, are more likely to become STEM majors.
Okay.
They want to know what our people are doing for others in Illinois.
So
really, we're not really shaped by these outside standards.
So what about internal standards like SSLs, for example? Why do we feel the need to create those then?
Yeah. Well, I think the SSLs really respond to learning about learning, metacognition, the kind of career preparation for careers that don't exist. You know, I actually have written a chapter for a book about that. They want me to write a chapter on career readiness. I said only if I can write about it from Imsa's perspective, which is preparing students for careers that don't exist. As we heard at that orphan disease panel. I mean, what a great case in point.
That's true.
So, and I think the SSLs are terrific standards from that point of view.
Okay.
What we need to do is do a better job of developing, I think, performance assessments or other assessments that show that students are mastering the SSLs. And because I do think that if we have good assessments of those, it will help us also make a case that, hey, for other schools, these aren't just mumbo jumbo words. That, you know, here's examples of sound standards, sound assessments that have sound outcomes, and ideally we can change the face of education in Illinois that way, versus, hey, here are some new standards and we measure them through, you know, one test score.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So this is the last question. Important to where do you see the future of Imsa and the future of students across Illinois?
Yeah. So I think our future is bright, but I think we need to. Frankly, you brought up some good points in your article. We really need to focus more on the innovation in our laboratory culture. I think the extent we can do that, it will be better off for Imsa, and it will certainly be better off for students and teachers across this great state and well beyond. You know, you have seen yourself as some of the other students I've worked with directly in terms of international work. It's not about international competitions, but international collaboration. And if we do not continue to innovate, if we do not strive to pilot some of these programs, be a laboratory, we will not be able to even collaborate with our peers in other countries. You just heard that last week about what they want to do with project-based learning. And we need to continue that, and we need to bring, I think, more of the student voice into innovation. So I would encourage students to have these conversations with their teachers. I'd encourage them to write on the course forms, to be honest about what they expect and what they want to see with imagination and inquiry. Because you will have a voice in shaping, you know, our future. The analogy I draw at this time of the 25th anniversary is a time to appreciate these deep roots, but it's also a time to look at pushing the leaves and branches and flowers upward as well. And you know, how do we provide the nurturing to do that? How do we ignite your minds to make that happen? So I think I think the extent that we can live into our laboratory identity, we will become the world's leading teaching and learning laboratory.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. But it's everybody's responsibility. It's not just the administration, not just the faculty, it's the students.
Students as well.
Yeah. So I hope, if nothing else, this article stimulates these kind of deep conversations across the campus, and that the questions you ask are not just of me, but of yourselves and of other faculty members. So I want to thank you for the and I'll answer more.
Did you have any closing thoughts or anything you'd like to say to the student bodies directly? Yeah.
Well, first of all, to the campus as a whole, let me talk about personalized learning experiences and strategy too. And because this is how three things, and this will be the first. And this is how this conversation started, Rahul, with you and me at the NCSSS MST conference, was the need for personalized learning. So we have a whole strategy devoted to personalized learning, and we've made some progress, but we need to make more. So this 5-year strategic plan, maybe 6, it may be 7, but I'm not going to put it to bed until we have a personalized learning framework. Because I think especially for some students, and perhaps more seniors than sophomores, once we're assured that the sophomores are going to graduate and move to juniors and seniors, that you as seniors especially need opportunities for personalized learning, to develop some significant projects even beyond SIR that you want to pursue, or SIR more than on 1 day a week.
Right.
Maybe it's 2 days, maybe it's 3 days, maybe it's a 3-week extended period. I think your article begins to speak to the importance of personalized learning, and I hope that perhaps in future acronym articles can work with some of our strategy 2 leaders and more on how can we develop that, because that is one of the, oh gosh.
No, it's okay.
One of the biggest mistakes in an interview is not turning off your cell phone. And actually, I just think I put my wife on speakerphone, so I hope she enjoys the interview. The second piece is about the new symbolism, and that really struck a note because you're absolutely right. We have the iconic pillow wall, we have the hamster ball, but if I look at Washington D.C. in the last 25 years, the Martin Luther King Memorial, the World War II Memorial, the FDR Memorial, I think that's been within the past 25 years or close. I mean, these are great national. We need more of this at Imsa, and I'm really eager to get some input and feedback on that. I have some of my own ideas what that should look like. I'm sure everyone,
would love to see that.
But I think that'd be a great dialogue for our 25th year. What is for the next 25 years, what will our new symbolism be, our new artwork? That was a great point. So I'd ask the students to give me some ideas about that, or create a forum where we can discuss that. And finally, let me just say, as far as a message to the students and the acronym readers, you are our future, and I would ask you and challenge you to say, to answer this question, thus I recommend. In all our strategic planning meetings, whenever people have voiced intelligent criticism, intelligent feedback, intelligent ideas that maybe are counter to the way you think's going. If you think Imsa is stagnating, which I do not, but I respect others' opinions, and Alex wrote several opinions here. I say, okay, Alex, okay, other readers, if you think we're, thus I recommend, because a big part of my job is to make this vision work, to communicate it, and do that to the extent I hear from you. So, thus I recommend. Let's hear what it is.
Sounds good.
Good.
For the future. All right. Thank you, Dr. McGee.
Thank you, Rahul, and thank you, Andrew, and thank you, viewers and readers of the acronym.